Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and kick it off. Um, Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the 2025 First Flush Volunteer Training. We're really excited to have all of you here with us today. And on behalf of everyone at the RCD, the Resource Conservation District team, I want to thank all of you for your time and commitment to this important program, especially being here with us on a Wednesday evening can be tough. This is something, First Flush is something that we really can't do without all of your support. But it's also something that we hope teaches you about water quality in our community. This virtual training is the first of our two-part training that we're going to be doing. The second part will be an in-person training at Pacific Estate Beach taking place this upcoming Saturday. And before we kick it off, I'm going to get into just a little bit of housekeeping. So first off, this presentation is being recorded for any of the folks who signed up to volunteer but aren't able to join us today. And we're happy to share the slides, so we'll be sending them out. So you're welcome to take whatever notes you feel like you need or want, but also just give yourself some space and freedom to just listen and take it all in, because we're going to be throwing a lot of information at you. But we're available. This is a conversation, and we want you to have a great time while learning something along the way. So don't hesitate to reach out to us at any point following this presentation, or if you're watching it later, after you have a chance to watch it. If you have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And on the topic of questions, we welcome questions, but we ask that you save them for the end of the presentation. We'll have some time at the end that we can have more of a discussion and answer any questions that you might have, but we don't necessarily need to include that in the recording. If you think of a question as we're talking and you're worried that you might forget it, what you can do is you can just write it down in the chat. So that saves it there. And then when we get to the questions at the end, we will read through those questions and answer any of them that came in through the chat. So to kick off today's training, I think it'd be really great if we started off by getting to know each other a little bit. So please, and this is actually a good way to practice the chat feature as well. So please go ahead and put your name in the chat and maybe describe either what inspired you to volunteer with this program and or something you're hoping to learn through this experience, so that we really want to make this a learning experience for everybody. And while you're putting that in the chat, I will go ahead and introduce myself. So my name is Clifton Herman. I'm a water quality specialist with the San Mateo Resource Conservation District. We also call it the RCD. My education is in marine biology, and I have experience working in private consulting as well as for state and local governments on water quality and conservation type projects. And I think for me, I'd say the thing that drew me to this type of work, and something I'm excited about First Flush, is that I have a strong passion for natural environment, and I always try to build community through the work that I do. So I'm really excited to meet all of you and to be working with this program. So a little bit of an overview here of what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to talk about First Flush, what it is. We're going to talk a little bit about watersheds. Then we're going to get kind of into what we test for in this program. And then we're going to go into what volunteering entails, some of the logistics, things like that, which includes, we're going to be talking about some team assignments. We're going to be all broken up into teams and volunteer information. What you can expect the day of the actual sampling event. We're going to do an overview of the sampling materials and protocols. I think that's a big area where it'll feel like a lot of information, but that's really what we're going to be covering more closely in the in-person training on Saturday. So we're really going to, drill into all the materials that you're going to use, all the protocols that are relevant. But we just want to show them to you today as well. After that, we'll do, some safety tips, how to stay safe in the field, and then we'll summarize everything in the end, and then we'll have time for questions. Some of you, I can guess, are already familiar with what a RCD or Resource Conservation District is, since you heard about this program and you're here with us today. But if not, we are a special district, or in other words, a form of local government formed by the community to provide them with services. So in our case, at the RCD, we were formed in the 1930s to help people help the land. And there are about 100 RCDs across the state serving as local hubs for community-led conservation. In San Mateo County, we focus on water, climate, wildlife, agriculture, and fire and forest health. And you can see some descriptions of our focal areas on this slide. The First Flush program specifically is managed by our water quality team, which is Grace and myself. But as you can expect, the program areas that you're looking at here on the screen are in many ways interrelated, and we often call on other staff at the RCD to collaborate, to find collaborative solutions to help people in our community. And I'm really sorry, Grace, I didn't give you time to introduce yourself, so I'm just gonna stop right now and give you a chance to do that before I get any further.
No, you're great. I'm Grace Ellen. I'm a water quality technician at the RCD. And this is going to be my third First Flush, so I'm excited to be doing this with y'all. And thank you.
Great, thank you, and sorry about that. Mark and Kim, you are welcome to have your videos on, but just as a heads up, we are recording this, so it's going to be posted online. So if you'd rather have your video off, that works too.
Okay. I like the rainbow.
Yeah, that's nice. All right, so moving on. What is First Flush? You know, we keep throwing this around. There's kind of two things going on here. So as a concept, First Flush is this event. It's the first big rain event of the wet season after a long dry period. So during this First Flush event, contaminants that have built up on roadways and sidewalks and other impervious surfaces throughout the dry season, the whole summer, can be washed, or we say flushed, into creeks and eventually the ocean. So thankfully we can say, thankfully actually when we say flush here, we're not talking about like toilets or anything like that. But what we can say is that it's generally considered the worst case scenario for water quality, the First Flush event, because everything that's being accumulating on the land during the dry season is getting washed out into the ocean. So that's why we call it a flush, nothing to do with toilets. So that's the event. Sometimes we talk about First Flush just like as a weather event. We can also talk about it as the name of the program, because that's the name of this program. So this is our First Flush is also our volunteer water quality monitoring program. The RCD coordinates efforts in San Mateo County as part of the overall multi-county program managed by the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. This is a long-running program that started in the year 2000. So we're actually going to be taking samples for our 26th year this year. So we're really excited to do that. And what this means is that the First Flush program has created a really valuable long-term data set that we can use to inform actions that protect and improve water quality throughout the region. So something that's exciting about this program is that Monterey County actually has their own First Flush program as well, which means that we can use the data from our area to make regional comparisons across different spatial scales. So that's a really cool thing about this program. Not only has it been running for a really long time, but it also happens in other counties on the coast. So it gives us a chance to make these comparisons. So what is a watershed? You guys might be familiar with this, but a watershed is essentially an area of land that all drains to the same body of water. If you imagine a drop of water falling, up at the top of the hill, that drop will eventually travel overland through the tributaries and creeks and eventually out into the ocean. That water can carry pollutants, which means that actions on land are directly connected to water quality downstream. For us in San Mateo County, we have several coastal watersheds that all drain to the Pacific Ocean. And actually on this figure here, On the right, you can see this light blue shape here. This is the outline of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And so, oftentimes when people think about the marine sanctuary, they think about the Monterey area, but our watersheds also drain into the sanctuary. And so that's in part why we work with them on this program. So if you want to learn more about different watersheds in San Mateo County, where, maybe which watershed you're in, we found this really great interactive county watershed map on Flows to Bay that Grace will be dropping in the chat for you all to check out. And of course, this program is made possible through funding and donations from our partners and sponsors. These include the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, like I mentioned, as well as the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side, San Mateo County Harbor District, City of Pacifica, the Rose Foundation, and San Mateo County. But most importantly, this program is made possible by all of you. We're extremely thankful for the volunteer community scientists that make this program happen year after year, going on 26 years. And this is only my second year participating in the First Flush program, but I look forward to many more to come. It's a lot of fun. So I kind of keep talking generally about water quality. When it comes to the water quality work that we do at the Resource Conservation District, we are interested in and centered around either human health and or ecological health. And we have for decades through the water quality program been working in partnership to understand water quality issues, contaminants, concentrations, and of course, we're always looking for solutions. Mm-hmm. Specific to the First Flush program, we're talking about water quality, but how do we assess that in this program? So our water quality parameters, which is a word that we use to describe the types of things we test for, are fecal indicator bacteria. Specifically in this program, we look at E. coli and Enterococcus. We also look at nutrients, specifically nitrate and orthophosphate. We also look at metals, specifically copper, zinc, and lead, and total suspended solids. And I'll get into descriptions of all of these in a moment. We also take field observations of the general site condition, and you will be doing all of this, taking field observations of what you see on site, as well as a few water quality measurements that you'll be taking on site with a little handheld water tester that we'll provide you. And I'm going to go into greater detail on all of these right now. So the first one, fecal indicator bacteria, or FIB, are bacteria that come from the intestine of warm-blooded animals, so poop. And many pathogens of concern, like salmonella, norovirus, adenovirus, also come from the intestines of warm-blooded animals. But there really isn't a way for us to test for all pathogens. So instead, we test for these bacteria as an indicator. So I think it's important to highlight that this is how it's done at the federal and state level to ensure public health. So if a stream or waterway has high levels of fecal indicator bacteria, it's possible but not guaranteed that this water could make you sick, because it's kind of an indicator that some of these other viruses and bacteria might be present. It's not perfect. The science behind evaluating public health risk from bacteria is nuanced and quickly evolving. What's important to remember, though, is that the bacteria that we're measuring here, which are E. coli and Enterococcus, are not actually what make you sick. But their presence does indicate the possibility that there are things in the water that can. So for that reason, we say that FIB, or fecal indicator bacteria, are a concern for public health more so than ecological health. Nutrients, on the other hand, are more of a concern for ecological health. So the concern here has to do with something called eutrophication. We have it written right here. This is a big scientific word that essentially describes how ecosystems can be impaired by excess nutrients in the water. As we all know, nutrients promote plant and algae growth. this can be natural and healthy, but when there are excess nutrients in the water, this can cause overproduction of plant material. And what happens is when these things are all broken down through decomposition, it eats up the oxygen in the water, and it can make it difficult for organisms to survive. So on the right-hand side here, I have a picture of what we call a fish kill or a fish die-off, likely caused by low oxygen as a result of this eutrophication process. Fertilizers that contain nutrients are essential for agricultural production, residential gardens, and ornamental landscapes. Agricultural fertilizer is heavily regulated by the state, so any use of agricultural fertilizer is regulated pretty heavily, whereas residential use is not regulated other than the labeling requirements for those products. So if you're using fertilizers at home, always make sure to follow those label guidelines. Other sources of nutrients, it's not just fertilizers, can include some pesticides, detergents, and then of course human and animal waste. So the old school fertilizer that we used to use. Heavy metals is our next group. These can enter the waterways from gutters, roofs, brake pads, tires, industrial waste, treated lumber, paint, fires, all sorts of things. Lots of other natural and human-related sources. Heavy metals can be essential for your body at appropriate doses, but they can also be linked to various human and ecological health impacts when present at high concentrations. So these are a concern for both public health and ecological health. For example, some of us might take zinc supplements to boost our immune systems, which is perfectly safe and healthy. I actually took one just the other day, and it seemed to work because I'm healthy now. And perfectly safe when used at the recommended dosages. Your body actually needs these things to function properly. But as with anything in excess, too much zinc can actually cause digestive issues. And if you were really wild about it and you took that to the next level, took way too much zinc for a long period of time, it can actually cause neurological issues as well. And these types of metabolic concerns are shared between humans and other critters living in the water. So that's why we say it's a human and ecological concern. Another example is, lead, which we all know can cause serious health complications, especially for young children. So in the First Flush program, we test for copper, lead, and zinc. The last group that I'll talk about here are total suspended solids, or TSS. And these can originate from natural or accelerated rates of erosion, construction sites, agricultural runoff, fires are another big source of suspended sediments, but many other sources. Essentially anything that's causing more erosion than would normally happen. Total suspended solids is essentially a measurement of how much sediment there is in the water. So if TSS is too high, it can impact aquatic animals by clogging their gills or limiting visibility, making it hard to breathe or eat. But there's also a chemistry angle here because suspended sediments often have a molecular charge, which you can kind of think of as like a static charge that actually can attract and carry pollutants with them. And so often TSS are associated with the presence of other contaminants such as bacteria or heavy metals. And we've seen that before in this program where we have high TSS and associated with that we have a high occurrence of heavy metals as well. So for these reasons, we consider TSS or total suspended solids to be a concern for both human and ecological health. So what does it mean to be a First Flush volunteer? So that's kind of like the science background of what we're testing, what we're looking at. Now we're moving into, what it means to volunteer with this program with us. So you can expect to contribute to community science. You will be protecting water quality for the health of people and wildlife. You're going to go out in the rain to collect water samples and field measurements with us. There's a good chance it'll be in the dark. And you're going to be on call 24/7, kind of. We know it's a big ask, but we can't control the weather as much as we wish we could. And so, sometimes first flush has happened on Thanksgiving, on years that Thanksgiving happens kind of earlier. Sometimes it's at 2 in the morning. But so you're going to be on call to the extent that that is reasonable for you to do with us. And kind of on that note, when is first flush? So now that we have 25 years of data to work with of when it actually happened, I pulled together this figure here. And you can see that in this top figure, generally, or the earliest first flush has ever happened was September 21st, and the latest it has ever happened is November 21st. So with kind of a peak here in mid to late October. And some of you might be wondering, because we did have some rain this week, right? Like what's going on with that? The short answer is that it wasn't enough rain. So really what we're looking for is water to be sheeting over the roadways and other impervious surfaces, washing into the creeks, flushing out those storm drains. And the amount of rain that we've found kind of signifies that happening has been 0.1 inches of rain in a 1 hour period. We also want that to be across the entire area, though. So, the first flush program, we take samples from Pacifica in the north to southern Half Moon Bay in the south. Sometimes it's really patchy. You might get the rain threshold amount in one area, but not another area. So, it's a little bit subjective. But we're checking the weather forecast several times a day as we gear up for this event, and we will be communicating that out to all of you the best we can. So going back to this figure here, I mentioned the earliest has been September 21st, latest was November 21st, and we had one time where it happened twice on the same day, so October 20th is our current winner. If you look at the lower figure here, this more has to do with time of day. So this is military time in the bottom, midnight, and then 11 p.m. on the far right. Generally, it looks like over the last 25 years, it has happened more often sort of in the early morning time. But, as you can see, it's really any time can happen of day. So I want to pause here for just a second and let you all kind of think about when you think first flush might happen this year. Because, we've had we had a really cold summer. We had that kind of rainstorm this week that rolled in. So I want you to kind of think about when you think it might happen this year, but don't tell us. Just keep it in mind, because we're actually going to do a little betting pool of, everyone's going to have a chance to guess when they think it's going to happen, and then the person with the closest guess will be winning a prize. So here we have a map of our sites on the left-hand side. As I mentioned, reaching from Pacifica in the north to southern Half Moon Bay in the south. One of the main challenges of sampling stormwater at this scale is that we can't be in 2 or 5 or 10 places at once. And really, that's where all of you come in. When these storms roll through, we typically have a pretty short window to get all of the samples as the first flush is happening. And we really, we want to get it like right as everything is rushing out. So in order to do this, we break all the volunteers up into teams, so you can sample all the sites sort of within that short window. So again, here are the sites that we're going to be sampling this year, organized by different colors. Team 1 has the northernmost sites up to Pacifica, and then Team 5 here in the south has the southernmost sites in Half Moon Bay. And similar to thinking about your guess of when it's going to happen, I want you to just look at this map for a second. Think about what team you might like to be on, whether it's for convenience of being close to home, which can help because it's usually raining, or maybe just part of the coast that you're particularly fond of that you want to sample in. And then please also think about whether you would like to be a team captain or team lead. That role will involve being a liaison between Grace or myself and the rest of your team during the first flush event. So on the next slide, we're going to have information about a form that we'd like all of you to fill out with these preferences. Um, and I'll say that, we're going to do our best to honor the preferences for team choice, but, we might need to rework the team groups depending on availability when the big day comes. So that's always a possibility. So here we have a team selection form. You can, if you want to do it on your phone, you can scan this QR code and do it on your phone. Or Grace will be dropping in the chat the link that's here, this URL. We're going to give everybody, we're going to take a 5-minute break to give you a chance to fill out that form where we're going to ask for your team preference. We're going to ask for whether or not you would like to be a team captain. And then we're also going to ask for your guess as to when you think First Flush will happen this year. So the time is, I have 7:02. Let's give, now it's 7:03. So we will go till 7:08. We'll come back at 7:08. I can do some quick math. It's late. And then after we come back, we will talk about how to sample and show you some of the supplies and things that you'll need. So if you have any issues with the form, you can type in the chat as well, and we can try to help. But we'll be back at 7:08. All right. So if anybody is still working on filling it out, you can just leave the tab open and finish it after we're done if you don't want to miss any of what we're talking about. Um, or you can just keep working on it. But I think from here, Grace is gonna take it away. She's our fieldwork extraordinaire and has been working hard to get all the supplies ready and all the protocols and everything like that. So she's gonna cover that now.
Thank you. I don't know if I can live up to extraordinaire, but I appreciate it. Um,
Ah, come on.
yeah, so thank you for filling out your team selection forms. So now we're going to go over a little bit more of the logistics about being a First Flush volunteer. So we'll be keeping track of the weather and send updates based on when we think the First Flush event could happen. And we'll try to provide as much notice as possible. But it is kind of tough to track the weather, as you all know. Yeah, we'll try to give you as much notice as possible. And then the team captains will coordinate with their team for the equipment pickup, the team meetup location, and the equipment and sample drop-off. And as we said earlier, the weather can be tough to predict. So sometimes there can be a false start where we'll notify everyone, but then the conditions on the ground don't match up to the forecast. So this does tend to happen at least once a year, but we'll do our best to avoid this and try to keep everyone updated.
Yeah, the big goal is trying to cancel it before everybody mobilizes. Sometimes we'll say, "Oh, it's happening," and then we'll say, "Oh, wait, never mind."
Mhm.
The goal is to say, that before you get in your car or anything like that. But yeah, it definitely
Exactly.
can happen.
Yeah, there's usually one person who is let down by seeing me at the office and being like, "I'm sorry."
We'll try to not do that to you. We
Yeah.
really value your time. We
Exactly. Yeah, so the day of our first flush event, what's going to happen? So we'll send you an alert um, when we think it's going to happen. And then you all will coordinate within your team to have someone pick up the equipment at the RCD office and then meet up at your designated meetup location and time. And then you'll all travel to your team sites to collect your samples, take your field measurements, and note your observations. And also, please take photos while you're out there. We'll be making a plug for some photo contests later on in the presentation, but it's just generally fun to have photos of y'all taking your samples and also just of the site conditions. And then you're going to return your materials and your samples to the RCD office, and then you'll be done. So now we'll get more into the specific information about the materials and sampling methods. So when you collect your supplies from the RCD office, they will include everything that you'll need to sample, and it's everything on this list. So we'll give you a cooler with ice. We'll give you a small sampling bucket with a spout. We'll give you a large bucket to hold your materials. We'll give you a red solo cup, a clipboard with field sheets, distilled water bottles and alcohol, gloves, pencils and Sharpies, sample bottles, and then a combo pH conductivity TDS tester to take your field measurements.
I'll just add the alcohol is to clean the sampling bucket and the cups. Any drinking alcohol would have to take place after.
Exactly, cool. So then at each site, you'll be going through these 6 steps. And also, we're throwing a fair amount of information at you today, but we'll be practicing this whole process at the in-person training on Saturday. And then you'll also have a video that we'll be sending all of you. So for step 1, we're going to be putting on gloves. Step 2, we're going to be labeling bottles. Step 3, we're going to fill out our field sheets. Step 4, clean your bucket and or cup. Step 5, fill your sample bottles and take your field measurements. And then step 6, place your samples in your cooler filled with ice. So step 1 is super important. You're going to want to put your gloves on as soon as you get to your site. And this helps prevent from contaminating the water sample as well as protecting your health. We don't know what's in the water until we get the results back. So we want to make sure to maintain your safety throughout this process.
And in your kit, you'll also have some hand sanitizer that you can use to wash your hands, or at least sanitize your hands after you're done collecting the sample.
Totally. Yeah, good point. So step 2 is going to be labeling your bottles with the date and the time. So everything else will be filled out already when you have the bottles. And then you're just going to write down your date and your time, ideally in military time, so that we don't have to deal with the AM PM thing if that happens. And then also you're going to want to write these before your bottles get wet, because once they do, it's really hard to write on them. So I kind of tend to do it in the car or under a sheltered area. And then it's also really important to match the date and time on your bottles to the date and time on your field sheets. So just make sure that you're getting the same for both. Awesome. So yeah, here are the field sheets, very glamorous. So you're going to want to use pencil on these because these are going to be Write in the Rain paper, which is just a type of paper that doesn't get wet, but then also is hard to write with Sharpies on it. So use your pencil, fill out all information, and also include your field observations and your field measurements. And it's really important to get all of these filled out thoroughly with any like observations of the site because you're our eyes and ears out there. So anytime, whenever we get the data back, this is going to really help to put into context the site conditions. Cool. So yeah, there are going to be varying roles within your team, and you can choose your fighter. So the 4 main roles that are needed at each sampling location, and depending on how many, you can choose to be the same one, or you can mix it up to get to experience each role. So the archivist is going to fill out the field sheet and record observations and field measurements made by the team. And then the scout is going to keep an eye out for safety, make observations to share with the archivist, and then use the water tester to measure the pH, temperature, and salinity. They can also take photos. Well, really anyone can take photos. Please do. I encourage it as much as possible. And then there's the water bringer, who's going to clean the sampling bucket and collect the sample from the creek or outfall. And then you have the bottle master, who's going to be labeling the bottles and going to make sure that the date and time match with the archivist, and then hold the bottles to be filled. And we don't know how many people are going to be in each team yet because we haven't done the assignments. So there's a real possibility that there won't be 4 people per team. There could also be more than 4 people per team. That would be lovely. But in case there aren't 4 people per team, you'll probably be doing multiple roles. Awesome. So it's really important to clean your bucket in between each site so that we're not contaminating our sample. And so to do so, you're going to be rinsing your sampling bucket with the alcohol that was mentioned before and distilled water 3 times each. And then you're going to rinse your sampling bucket with creek water 3 times as well. And then if the flow is too low, you're going to use your red solo cup to rinse the little bucket 3 times with sample water, and then use the red cup to fill the little bucket full. The reason that you're doing this is to make sure that you have a well-mixed sample that's representative of the water that you can pour into each of the sample bottles, because otherwise you'd be doing like a red cup per sample bottle, and it might not be like homogeneous or like well-mixed. Yeah, and then you're going to fill your sample bottles with the water from the little bucket. And the little buckets now have spouts, so it's way easier than just a regular round bucket. So that's exciting. Yeah, and so we're going to try not to put any fingers in the cups, buckets, or sample bottles. And this is just so that we don't contaminate our samples. Awesome. So 2 of our teams will be collecting extra samples at one of their sites that will serve as quality control. And that includes a blank and a duplicate. So a duplicate is a type of quality control sample where you collect 2 sets of the same sample and send both to the lab. And then if the results of these are similar, we know that we can trust that data. So to collect your dupe, you're going to fill your original sample bottles first, and then fill the duplicate sample bottles using the same bucket of water. And we want that to be the same, again, just that it's representative between those sample bottles.
Yeah, so in that case, if you are on the team that's doing the duplicate for that site, and we will give you all of your bottles will be in separate bags. It'll all be sort of labeled for the site and everything. So when you're on the duplicate site, you'll want to make sure that your bucket is really full so that you can fill all the bottles from the same sample.
Yeah, thank you. And then our second form of quality assurance are our field blanks. And field blanks are sample bottles filled with distilled water. And since it's distilled water, it should come back without detected pollutants. And so to collect our field blanks, you're going to fill the sample bottle marked blank with the distilled water bottle provided in your buckets. And then you're going to label again with the date and time. So we have some protocols for sampling from a creek or an outfall. And so when you're sampling a creek, you're going to want to sample where water is flowing, and try not to get sediment in the water sample. And also when rinsing your bucket, make sure to throw water downstream. And the reason for most of these is because you don't want to contaminate the water upstream. And you also don't want to suspend sediment, which can also hold on to pollutants in the water. And you want it to have a nice representative sample. And then when you're sampling a stormwater outfall, sample where water is flowing directly out of the outfall, and don't stand in front of the outfall as there can be sudden surges in flow, which can be fairly dangerous. And we kind of, again, want to make your safety our priority. And also if the tide is mixing into the water from the outfall, don't sample this as we only want the water that is coming from the land because we're more interested in pollutants that have built up on land rather than tidal influence to that. And then some of the teams will have a bucket with rope, as this is the only way to sample some of the outfalls, as pictured here. If you're on one of these teams, we'll include this in the site directions, and we'll provide that bucket for you. If you're on one of these teams, please use extra caution as while you're like throwing it over, it can be kind of heavy while you're pulling it back, or if the flow is strong, that can also be a little tough to hold on to. So just use some caution while you're using that.
Yeah, and if you're holding the bucket on the rope and you start to lose the bucket, let the bucket go. You know, we'd rather have the bucket go into the ocean than you. So, you know, safety is number one.
Yeah, you're more important to us than the bucket, we promise. Well, yeah, so just to recap, at each site, you're going to step one, put on your gloves. Step two, label your bottles. Step three, fill out your field sheets. Step four, clean your bucket and or cup. Step five, fill your sample bottles and take your field measurements. And then step six, place your samples in the cooler filled with ice. And again, we'll be practicing all of this on Saturday, or you can see it in the video. And again, your safety is our number one priority. So some things to be practicing as you're out there is to always be aware of your surroundings, never risk your safety. It's never worth it. And do not put yourself in front of rushing water. Don't walk on unstable ground. Sometimes there can be kind of fake banks where it looks like it's stable, but it's actually eroded. Be aware of the wildlife and protect yourself from exposure to the elements such as dirty water, tides, cold, and the rain. And most importantly, never sample alone. Obviously, you're going to be on teams, but make sure that you are always with a buddy and have someone that you can reach out to.
Yeah, and I'll add that we do have rain gear that we provide. I imagine a lot of folks on the coast are accustomed to these big rainstorms that we get, but we have some big yellow rain slickers that we can provide if you don't have rain gear that you're comfortable with, or something, because it's really important to stay dry out there. If you get cold and you get wet and you start getting cold, there's no problem with just, you know, hey, I'll sit this one out or sit this site out. I'll catch you at the next site and, you know, warm up in the car or something. Because it being cold can come up really sneakily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good points. So what are the next steps after this training? So we have our in-person sample training this Saturday, September 13th at 10:30 a.m. And that's again where we're going to go through all of the steps that we've just talked about and practice them in person at one of our sites, so that you'll be all ready when the first Flush event comes. And so for that, we're going to meet at the Pacifica State Beach North Lot. We'll be providing parking passes. But if you're not available on Saturday, we also have a video that we'll be sending out that covers the same information. And again, thank you for filling out your team selection forms. Using that information, we'll be giving you a team assignment and be sending you the site directions for your team. And we ask that you review the site directions because it's kind of tough if your first time going out there is in the middle of the night or in the middle of a rainstorm. It can be kind of disorienting. So it's kind of ideal to know where you're going before it's the day of. And also please review sampling instructions that we'll also be sending your way. And then after that, we'll be waiting for the rain. And so we'll let you know when we think it's going to come. We'll try to give you as much notice as possible. And I'll try to avoid disappointing you at the office. So yeah, and then so for the day of, you'll coordinate with your team and your team captains. And then day of, we'll let you know it's happening. And then you'll meet at the office or your designated spot to pick up your supplies. You'll collect your samples, and then you'll return to the meeting spot and then ultimately the RCD office. And so the RCD office's address is down below, but we'll be sending you that in future correspondence too. So don't worry if you don't catch it right now. And then to recap, yeah, please visit your sites before the first Flush event, and then meet at the RCD office once called or at your designated meetup spot. You're going to drive to your sample sites, fill your sample bottles, take your field measurements and observations, and fill out your field sheets, and then ultimately return to the RCD office with all of your samples and materials. And then we'll let you know what the data says when we get that back.
Yeah, and the site descriptions, we for anybody who volunteered last year, they were sort of a little bit outdated. Grace and I are going out this week. We're going to go to all the sites, take new pictures. So when you get your site descriptions, it'll say, it'll show the coordinate of where you want to be sampling from. We're going to have pictures that show how to get there, as well as text descriptions. So we'll try to make that all as clear as possible. But when we send those out to you, if you have any questions, again, don't hesitate to just reach out to us. And we're happy to work with all of you because we're thankful to have all of you working with us.
Agreed. And the most important thing to do is have fun with 4 exclamation marks. And I really love the first Flush because it gives us a chance to get to know our watersheds way better and also get to know our community way better. I think it's really special to have so many people so passionate about where they live and where they swim and where they surf, and just to get to know them better. So I really appreciate you all being here. It also is kind of an adventure to go and collect samples in the rain, in the dark. Makes you feel kind of like the Indiana Jones of water quality. Maybe that's exaggerated, but it's really fun, and I really appreciate you all being here.
No snakes.
No snakes, no snakes. Maybe, but keep an eye out.
Yeah.
And also, make sure to get your bets in for the date that you think that it might happen. If you get the closest to the actual first Flush event, we'll give you a prize. And then also, we are going to have the photo contest that we mentioned before. And those categories are best team photo, best action shot of like collecting samples, and then safely silly. So that's going to be you displaying your safety gear. So yeah, please take as many photos as possible. And then also we'll give you a prize if they're nice. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and to volunteer for First Flush. As I said, it's a very special program, and you all are what make it special. So now we're going to end the presentation and open it up to questions. But if you have any further questions after that, or if you think of something after this presentation, please contact us at firstflush@sanmataorcd.org, or go to our website or reach out to one of us personally, whatever is best for you. But yeah, with that being
All
said,
lines are open.
yeah, we're here. So yeah, with that being said, I'll stop the recording and open it up to questions.